Marcus from the Collective Private Chef and Catering. Marcus, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
I'm very excited to not only dive into your private chef, but some of your personal struggles and your stories to hopefully inspire people. So thank you so much for coming on, and shout out to Halil from House of Coffee for letting us film here.
hmm
Can you kind of talk about what is the mission of the collective?
So yeah, I mean, the mission I would say, is to bring people together through food while supporting our community with every step of the way. We are two classically trained chefs who believe in providing elevated comfort food and top tier service, whether it's an intimate in home dining experience or a large catered celebration or a custom charcuterie and grazing spread. At the heart of what we do is all about collaboration with local businesses, farms, providers, and anything else above. So that every dish we serve reflects the richness of our community of Northwest Ohio. We're dedicated to sourcing ingredients locally and embracing a farm to table approach, ensuring freshness, quality, and authenticity in everything we prepare. Cooking with intention is what we like to call it. The collective stands for more than just food, it's about hospitality, connection, and creating memorable experiences that feel both elegant and welcoming.
And when you say cooking with intention, can you kind of dive into what that
Yeah,
exactly means for you
for
guys?
sure. That's like a huge thing. So my other chef partner, Josh, he was something I think he kind of came up with that, or at least he's the one who started spreading that idea in the kitchen every time we would do an event or every time we would prep or do something. And you know, I'm more of the nervous, I guess, perfectionist where I want, I'm worried, worry war, like I want to get everything perfect. And he's the type of guy that's um, he's the one, we kind of feed off each other, and he's the one that kind of talks me up. And he's like, hey, chef, we got this, we got this. And he's like, no one in the city is cooking with intention like we are. And he always says that. And I really like it, and I live by it now. And I would say, with that being said, it's like, we pride ourselves in our food and our service and our hospitality, um, and with all of that wrapped into one, we like to say we're elevated comfort food. People ask us what kind of food you do. That's why it's called the collective. The collective is a group of numerous different things coming together as one. So, we specialize in a lot of different regions' foods. We specialize in a lot of different classical cuisines to authentic street foods from different parts of the world. With me being Polish and Irish, and then half of my family uh, is married in is Mexican or Latino, and then I've had adopted cousins from all over the world, that are Asian. I was growing up eating with chopsticks when I was like 4. So, everything we do is with intention, meaning like if we're going to make you a barbecue meal, we're going to go low and slow. We're not going to rush it. We're going to do everything we can to provide that real authenticity of barbecue experience. If we're going to do authentic Mexican street food, I'm gonna go to the probably the cultural store, over on the east side of Toledo, and grab authentic chile peppers and adobos, and make our own adobo paste. And just really, we take that extra step when we cook to provide that. It might be a drag maybe to do those extra steps, and kind of um, it's like, people might say doing too much, but every guest is its own person, and we treat our guests like extended family, like we're cooking for our own family members. So we want to cook like how we would want people to cook for us, and that's with love, care, thoughtfulness. We don't just put any random ingredient in there, you know what I mean? Like, we're not going to just go and buy something frozen just because it's more convenient. We're going to break down our own chicken breasts and clean them before we make your chicken piccata, even if it takes an extra hour or so, to get that chicken nice and clean, perfect, and brined for the day before we actually bread it and do your chicken piccata all together in a pan. Like, um, you know, when we make our own vinaigrettes in house, we don't just go buy vinaigrettes or dressings for our salad bars. Like, uh, we make sure they're emulsified, just simple little things that people that are actually at the event and eating may not even notice. But at the heart of it, that's what makes us stand out different. And we like to make sure that we're doing that for every guest and client and extended family members, like we like to call them, and treating them with as much respect for the love of the food and the hospitality that we would want as chefs, So I guess that's the best way I can explain it.
Why is food the outlet that you chose to spread this love to people?
Sure. At a young age, my Polish side of the family, my grandparents and my great aunt, they were all always cooking in the house, making homemade pierogies, kielbasa, Polish food, man, was always in the house. And even if it wasn't Polish food, my grandma was always making different casseroles. She made a lot of homemade dinners for the family. My grandpa is a huge grill master back then, and he's a fisherman at heart. So like back in the day as a kid, I remember, he had a picnic table in his backyard, and he would catch fresh walleye and perch, and I mean, this is back in the day, he would put it on a cutting board right on that picnic table in the middle of summer and just break it down and clean it fresh from the same day he caught it. And he'd put that thing either, on the grill or the fryer. And I mean, there's nothing fresher than that for Ohio, at least for the Great Lake area. I know it's not ocean fish, but for us, that was great, and seeing my grandparents and my great aunt, uh, my aunt Betty, do that stuff growing up. Like she was known as one of the pierogi ladies in Toledo, over on the North End, where she would hand roll all the pierogi doughs, and you know, she would go to the Polish festival and sell thousands of them, and she was in the newspaper, and just seeing how much love they cared for food. And my grandpa, like I said, is a huge influence on me. He's a huge foodie also, I would say. He was a foodie, I think, before hipsters and people who want to be foodies came out of the woodworks like, oh, that's the cool thing to be. I'm talking, he's been a foodie, since the 80s. So he loves watching. Like I grew up watching Emeril Lagasse with him in the basement, in his finished basement, and on the big screen TV back then when I was a kid, and I was just like amazed by Emeril Lagasse or like Gordon Ramsay on TV, and we'd watch Iron Chef, and we just get a kick out of that, and got us really excited. And I told my grandpa one day, I was like, man, I'm gonna be on one of these shows. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna wear that chef coat. And I was huge into sports in high school at Whitmer, and that's a huge sports school. So like it's all year round thing to play football there. And I ended up just saying I'm over it. Like about I think my sophomore junior year, and I was around 15, 16 then, and I was like, and my grandparents sat me down, and my mom sat me down, and my family was like, well, if you're going to quit sports full time, you're going to need to get a job. So I ended up getting two jobs. I started off at Bar 145 in Toledo, and I'm my chef mentor I always considered him one of my biggest influences is Chef Robbie Lucas. He was part owner and executive chef of Bar 145 when they first opened, and they were the first gastropub doing kind of almost like fine dining things out of a bar. He ended up moving to like Amherst, Cleveland area, opened his own two restaurants, and uh, and then I also worked for Giorgio's International Cafe downtown as like a prep guy, dishwashing, and I saw a lot very early on, in the restaurant industry as a young guy, man. So it was either I'm gonna do it or I'm not, So I think it was, like I said, mainly family. The heart and soul of cooking was always around me in my family. Um, and then I just thought it was cool, man, And then I toured at Whitmer, this career tech program for culinary, and I was sold immediately. Just being in that kitchen and seeing people cut up stuff and use spices. And I just thought it was cool, man, some type of almost swagger to it. Like, chefs are a different breed. I feel like, it's they're they at the same time they're like, they're blue collar, but they're in their own, I feel like their own zone of their own of workmanship, because we're artists at the end of the day too. Like we create art, and a plate is our canvas, and but at the end of the day, it's hard work, man. So I've been through it all. I did schooling and I did the apprenticeship hard work hours. So I just never gave up, and I knew from day one. I really didn't ever have any other job I wanted to do. So
That's awesome. And you mentioned that cooking is an art form for you.
yeah, for sure, I would say so. I've always been artistic in a way. I'm not gonna lie. Like growing up, my grandma used to take some of me and my cousins to like art classes at the art museum, like in the summertime. Um, we were very into like drawing and like coloring. I remember as a kid, I won a very cool little story. As a kid, I won a coloring contest, and I ended up. It was like an entry all over Ohio for age groups, and I won this like picture coloring contest, and they sent you to accept the award at the Ohio State Fair in Columbus, and you went on stage and you drew like an animal that you wanted and colored it, and I was in like I don't know, I was maybe like 8 or 9, and I won an award, and there's still like VHS film of me on stage accepting it, and like I also did another thing for the Toledo Blade when I was a kid is like for Father's Day, draw your dad. But the closest dad figure for me is my grandpa, like I've been talking about. And I drew I was probably like 5 years old, 6 years old, and I hand drew a picture of him. And the Toledo Blade absolutely loved it, and they gave me like an award. And obviously it was like you won a bunch of gift cards for your dad for Father's Day, and you got your picture in the paper, and it still hangs at my grandparents' house. Um, so as a kid, I was always into art, man. I loved the art museum. You know, I still do to this day. I would say, and music is another thing for me as an outlet. Like I do produce music. I do play instruments. I do make music. I've been in bands. I've done every type of music I think there is, at least experimented with it in my free time as a hobby. But as an artist, truly, I think like, I was obsessed, especially once I went to culinary school in Columbus, of just creating that plate that looks beautiful to the eye, because obviously people eat with their eyes first, and at the end of the day, I put my own style and spin on things. When I was in culinary school, I kind of wanted to pull from different chefs, from all over the world that were like Michelin star or top restaurants, and fine dining, once I got into that. But at the end of the day, my heart and soul is very rustic. I'm an old soul. So as you can see, if you go to like my Instagram or even my business page of the collective, or my personal Instagram, Chef X Mark on Instagram, you'll see my photos of my food. It's simplistic food, nothing too insane. I'm not doing molecular gastronomy, but at the end of the day, it's just vibrance with colors and different fresh herbs, and just different components working off each other with that rustic, almost farmstead style family meal look. And that's just my canvas, man. Like I love just like nice photos of food, because like I said, people eat with their eyes first, man. And I think photos of food like definitely deserve to be in a museum in itself, or plates, like there's nothing like it in my opinion. So especially with how much hard work a lot of these chefs
Yeah,
all over the U.S., in the world do for that's all they have is their hands putting it onto a plate.
that's beautiful. Well, let me make sure
Yeah,
it's freaking recording. I was like, did I hit the? Okay, perfect, awesome, sweet.
cool.
I was like, art influences everything, right?
Yeah,
Like
right.
and especially when it comes to food,
Yeah.
that is a huge. I mean, that is the main aspect of our entire life. I mean, everything
Mhm.
revolves around food.
Yeah, man.
Dating, business, relationships, meeting,
Right.
everything revolves around it.
Right. I think that's a great talking point. I want to touch base on
Yeah,
just for a second is what you really let it into what something good we also believe in at the collective, and this is something I share with everyone. And for centuries, sitting at a table with someone with a drink or with food, has been a huge like monumental talking point, and like literally it's how we break bread and we come together as one, as a community, as people, as two separate parts. Even people in war, to settle war, would break bread over a table and have a glass of something and eat, and break a piece of bread. I mean, look at, uh not to get too deep, but look at so many moments in history. Like, look at the Last Supper. You know what I mean? One of the most iconic photos, or whatever you believe in, it still is like one of the most iconic stories. It's biblical. Like, Jesus sat there and said, "I'm gonna break bread with you guys the last night he was alive as man on earth, to tell his disciples, something's going to happen here." And it was very important. And then that moment to be captured in a painting, like, you see it's the Last Supper. I mean, they have a full meal. And back then that was very rare for them to have full meals. They would fast very often. So a full table of food and drink, that showed it was a very important moment in history and time. I mean, you can see, even back, like I said, a lot to do with war, a lot to do with different agreements and treaties in history. People, what do they always usually have? Some type of drink, some type of food, to settle things or to come together. Families forever. My Another huge person me and my grandpa used to watch was Anthony Bourdain. Rest in peace. He's one of the goats. Like, he would go around the world, and one of his slogans was, "I like to eat, I like to travel, and I don't like to work as much." And but he's one of the best chefs. He would just invite himself into random people's homes in different regions of the world and sit crisscross applesauce at a table on the ground and eat with his hands. Something he's never ate before, just to feel a part of their community and be a part of their family, and then they would welcome him in. In many countries, eating is a sign of respect. Like, if someone cooks you a meal, and you should eat it, even if you don't want it, like, in a lot of different cultures. So it's like, eating and food and breaking bread and creating those moments around a table is a driving force for our community to grow, expand, and come together as one. And that's something we specifically believe in at the collective. Is That's all we want to do, is just bring people together over a nice meal, a nice event with either a wine pairing, a beer pairing, a food pairing of some sort. At a wedding, look at weddings. I mean, that's one of the most important things there is what food are we going to have at the wedding? You know what I mean? That's like top three probably things that they're planning is, your whatever, your dress, this, that, and then you got your food. So it's like, um, you know, we just want to bring people together and make sure these moments are positive moving forward, that you'll always remember them, and stories can be passed down. Just like in the Last Supper, man, for hundreds of years, that the collective can be a part of that. And we bring that to the table of like, let us do the cooking while you make the memories, even if that's in home. I did a memorable one I did last year was a 95th birthday party
Wow.
for this guy and his family. They owned three houses in Napoleon, all next to each other, that they built from the ground up. Very family oriented, amazing, beautiful mansion. Walked in, had their own wine cellar cabinet, huge island, amazing spectacular kitchen for us to prep, me and my other cook. And we went in there, dude. We did four courses. We broke down pork loin in front of them. We broke down beef tenderloin in front of them. We did a whole charcuterie spread in front of them, while all the ladies, they watched and they drank wine and they were entertained. And the guys were hanging out in the living room, and we got to serve them. We had a whole table set up, and it was like their own private dinner in their house, and they loved it, man. And they absolutely, it was a great time. And it was something I think that they'll never forget. For their grandfather who just turned 95, and he's doing great for that age, and they wanted something to celebrate. So we do those type of events, man, and that's at the heart of what we do. We don't want to just, like, we're not people to just turn tables, in a sense.
Yeah.
Like, we're here to create bonds and moments that will last a lifetime. If you see our reviews on Facebook, I also recently did a celiac completely celiac disease friendly wedding catering menu for this couple. And they took all the leftovers on their honeymoon because they knew how hard it is to get very delicious celiac friendly food. And they loved it and everyone loved it. And I created a bond with them. I ended up doing her daughter's wedding as well. So it's like, it's just creating those moments.
It's beautiful, and
Yeah.
you can tell that you're passionate. You can tell that you love it. You can tell that you want to actually. It's not just about the food or
Right, right,
the money. It's about
right.
creating, like you said,
Yeah, I
those
definitely
memories.
didn't get into this, man, to be a millionaire. That's for sure. They even said that when I went to culinary school. If you're into this to become, on Forbes list or a millionaire, you probably want to, walk out now, because it's a lot of hard work for not a lot of recognition. And but at the end of the day, dude, the biggest thing that makes me feel the best is when I'm at an event and people really say, "This is delicious," and they
Yes.
smile when they eat my food. And after all that hard work and sweat and backbreaking work of unloading your truck, loading it up, prepping the food, buying the food, getting your team together, transporting the food, setting it up at the event, and then serving, it's just, once you're at that point where you can just be like, okay, we did it. They're happy. That's all that matters, man. The money, that comes second to that.
Yeah,
So,
that's beautiful. I also now want to dive into your struggle with COVID and
yeah,
how you almost passed away
yeah,
a couple years ago. When you were struggling with that, can you talk about what were some of the thoughts and feelings you were experiencing when you first realized what was happening?
yeah. So a little bit about that. 2021, I contracted COVID for the first time. It was the Delta variant. I was still working in kitchens and being a chef. I have just won Best Chef in the City of Toledo newspaper that year for 2020. So, I was riding strong, and then all of a sudden I got sick, didn't feel right, went to the hospital in the middle of the night and said I couldn't breathe. Passed out in the ER. They woke me up on a gurney and had high flow air on me, and that turned into 2 weeks in Toledo Hospital with a mask on. And they pretty much said, "You're not getting any better. You can't. You're not producing any oxygen through your blood, and we're gonna have to intubate you, which is medically induced coma, and because your body's failing you, and the only way to keep you alive and try to figure it out is to do that." And obviously, I was scared. I never had any health issues prior to that. I've never ever been a smoker or a drinker. I've never used any recreational drugs in my life. I drink probably like 20 glasses of water a day and 1 cup of coffee. That's it. So, you know, um, I've been pretty active my whole life. I've been a bigger guy, but I've always kind of went to the gym. I was very athletic. I like sports. Working in kitchens, long hours. So, it was very surprised to me. I was like, "What's going on here?" And it wasn't the normal flu for sure. And they're like, "You got COVID, and we're gonna have to pretty much put you under." They put me under, and they put me on ECMO, which a lot of people don't know what that is. It's a machine that's it's a life saving, like a life support system that is two huge hoses that go into one side of your jugular to the other, and it takes your blood out, oxygenates it for you in a machine, and puts it back into you. So they usually say once you're on that machine for a week, you're pretty much dead to rights. You have no chance. I was on it for about a week, and then they also trached me and put me on a ventilator. Well, they started with a hose down my throat and then put me on a trach and ventilated me on a breathing machine. So I was on two forms of life support. They ended up life flighting me while I was on those machines in a coma still, on a helicopter from Toledo to Cleveland University Hospital. I woke up 2 months later in a coma, which that was a huge experience, man. The coma was one of the worst things I've ever experienced in my life and scariest things. People think you're just sleeping and you're out of it. Like, it's not like going into a surgery where they just put you under and then you wake up like 10 minutes later and hours have gone by and you're like, "Oh, I feel better now." Like, no, man, like you feel and hear things that you're not supposed to, but you can't move, you can't talk, you barely open your eyes. You can hear people talking to you. And I heard the palliative care team, daily, like saying about how I was going to die. I had no chance. I had less than 10% chance to live because my lung just kept failing and dropping. So they ended up taking most of my right lung out. They wanted to do a transplant, but they figured that wouldn't help. So nowadays, I live most of my life. I mean, I have mostly only one lung. I live life day to day with that. But that turned into about a 6 to 7 month stint in Cleveland's ICU. Um, I had about 9 chest tubes in, 5 surgeries later. You know, I ended up dying in my coma once with a cardiac arrest. They brought me back with chest compressions. Um, and then I lost over 150 pounds. I mean, it was deathly sick, man. It was like no hope. And then at one point, they wanted me to get a transplant like earlier on. So they had me with all these hoses and machines hooked up to me doing like leg presses on a machine. And it was like CNN covered it because it was like unheard of at the time of someone doing PT, physical therapy, while on these life support like machines. So, I just battled, man. And, by the grace of God, like I was resaved. And, I saw things in that coma that only I can tell you for sure that I felt and saw and experienced that changed my life from that day on, that humbled me and made me a way better person. I'm stronger and better than ever. And I'm just have a whole new outlook on life, man. And I want to give back, to the community and give back to life as itself that God has created for me and my family. And, I knew that, uh, when I was in my coma, I saw Jesus and he told me, man, it wasn't your time yet. And that was it. And I woke up right after that. It was 2 months have gone by, but then it was still a long road. Like I said, 5 months, 6 months later, I was still in the ICU bed, a lot of complications. Then I ended up living in a rehab center for about a month to walk again. I had to learn how to walk, talk, eat. I still came home in a wheelchair and on oxygen. And my mom was my caretaker for about 5, 6 months. And finally in 2022, I was back to cooking again, man, off oxygen, walking by myself. The doctor said he'll never cook again, he'll never walk again. He'll have to be in a bedridden, and be on a breathing machine his whole life. And I said, screw that, man. And I just got up and did it. And by 2022, I was helping open Claude's with Benchmark Group. And then I became executive chef of Hartford Tavern in Perrysburg for Benchmark Group. So they believed in me, and I appreciate that at that time. Great people that really kind of put their faith in me as their chef, and didn't give up on me. And then ended up that year of 2022, going into 2023, I won Best Chef in the City for the second time.
Amazing.
So it's like, I won before I got sick and I won after I got sick. I think it really proved a point that anything's possible, man, especially with faith, prayer, and God. And I had obviously some of the best surgeons, and thank God, shout out to Dr. Tao. He's my thoracic surgeon, and I'm probably going to send him this after, because we talk on a daily basis. I have his personal cell. Maybe I shouldn't be giving that away, but he looks out for me, man. And he's become close to our family, and he did all my surgeries. And he's definitely been guided by God to really save my life, man, with all those surgeries. So he believed in me, though, man. He said, I'm going to be able to walk again. He's the one doctor, I think, he kept it real with my mom. He was like, there's chances that he will not, like he won't be doing any marathons anytime soon. But he was like, we're going to get him to the best possible way he can. So, and I think he's pretty pleased with how I am now, man. When he sees me, you can tell he's still in unbelief, from the difference I was from just a couple years ago. So it was a long road. It still is. I deal with complications day to day from COVID after it, such as liver disease. Like I said, I never drank in my life. I've never done a drug, but I suffer from liver disease because COVID attacked my organs. The fatigue from having a broken lung. Um, and I use an inhaler now. And, just some things are harder than others, going upstairs and steps, but I get through, man. I go to the gym, I work more than 60 hours a week, so it is what it is, man. So, thank God I have another chance. And that's why I said, last year, over a year ago, 2024 summer, I was like, and that's when I think we kind of reached out to each other, and I was like, hey man, I'm starting my own business. I need to do it. Time is now. So
Yeah. It is amazing the fact that you were able to push through all that. One thing I really want to pull from your mindset or just yourself in general is most people in that situation would have given up. If that was during the coma,
oh yeah,
if that was during the
oh
surgeries,
yeah,
or if that was after you got out
oh yeah,
all of that. Can you
yeah.
kind of dive into like what do you think about yourself enabled you to push through all that adversity that would have probably knocked off 90 to 95% of people that have
Yeah.
went through that?
I mean, there was times where I wanted to give up, man, and just stop, and I was like, screw it, I'll be on the vent my whole life. Because if as long as that's breathing for me, like I'll sit in this bed and watch TV shows the rest of my life, man. I worked hard at a young age. Like I told you guys, I started working at 15 years old in restaurants, 2 jobs. So and it didn't stop once I went to culinary school, man. Some culinary school kids, they just stop and go to school. I was working 2 jobs and going to school full time in Columbus. So, working 72-hour work weeks. So it's like I put my time in and I was like, man, if this is how I'm going to go out, I'm going to go out comfortable. And my mom didn't like that, man. My mom was there every day. She's my guardian angel. God sent her to be the best mom she could be for me, because he knew I needed her, and no one has ever helped me more than her, in life. So, with that being said, she was my biggest, she kind of gave me a kick in the butt, man. She still does today, like when I get down on myself about this business, like if I'm not as busy as I want to be, or is it worth it? Like I'm spending all this money on the collective, and I'm not making anything my first year. You just get in your head as a local business owner and you're sole proprietor, you're doing everything yourself. She'll be like, shut up, man, buck up, quit that crying and get to it, get to work, do something about it. And that's how she was, man. I mean, she was loving and caring, but at the same time, dude, no one wanted me to get out of that bed more than her, not even myself. Like she wanted me up and go moving. Like that's what the doctors told her. To get better, he needs to get up and moving. And I was so weak with muscle atrophy, man. When I woke up out of that coma, you gotta realize I couldn't talk, walk, eat, drink. I had a feeding tube, I had chest tubes, I had a trach. So I couldn't walk, move, or do anything myself. I could barely move my thumbs to push a button. I couldn't take drinks of water because the trach blocks your passageway. I couldn't eat. They had you on feeding tube, so it's like you felt like you felt like a prisoner of war. You felt like a zombie or something. You didn't feel like a human, so but she wanted to bring me back to that. You are a human. You are, God's child, and he's given this to you because you're one of his strongest warriors, and we got this power of prayer, man. Like, and you got bigger things to do. I was young still, man. That happened 2021. I'm about to be 30 now, so you do the math. I was mid 20s. It was like I still have so much life to live, man, and accomplish. And she just kept telling the doctors, we had palliative care coming in there daily, man, getting you comfortable to die, like telling you, like, are you need anything else, do you want anything? Like my mom would kick them out, dude. And I'm not gonna hold back, she'd cuss them out, man. She'd say, we have power of God, we believe in the Bible, we believe in faith, miracles can happen and he won't die. And there's just too much on this earth for him to live, and he's gonna walk. And she would scream on the top of her lungs. And when I would sit in that bed and cry, man. Like I would cry and be like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to. It was to move an inch felt like I was running a marathon at that time, man. And for them to even like it, there's videos I have posted before on my phone and everything of me sitting up, with the help of 4 different physical therapists in that hospital while I have all these tubes and cords hooked up to me. And it took 4 people to just sit me up in bed, man, because I couldn't do it. And to sit me up and to stand for not even a full second on my toes and then sit back down, literally felt like I played a football game, like I was out of breath. Like it was crazy. And most people wanted to give up. I wanted to give up. I didn't want to be on that vent. Between my mom and then my respiratory therapist, he was another awesome guy. And at the time, I hated him. He was trying to wean me off that ventilator, man. and it was very hard for me. It was scary because you get so dependent on a breathing machine, and hearing in that hospital that he can't breathe, he can't breathe, he can't breathe, his lungs are failing, he's dying. So in your head, you're manipulated to think, if they take me off this machine, I'm dead. You know what I mean? Like, so I would cry. They would have to trick me, man. They would like almost lie to me, like, hey, we're just putting you on CPAP for a minute. And they would completely turn off the vent and like see how long I would go by myself breathing. And once I kind of caught on, I'd have panic attacks, anxiety attacks, which that's a whole nother thing. But, it was hard, man. I mean, it was mental breakdowns. And for my mom to deal with that 12 hours a day, she pretty much quit her job. She moved to Cleveland, where I was at, living in hotel to hotel, walking across the street every day to be there. And she would do rounds with the doctors. She would do charting with the doctors and nurses. She caught things that the nurses didn't catch, like them taking me off my meds
Wow.
randomly, like when me sitting in my bed soiled for how many hours because the nurse didn't come in and check on me. My mom cleaned me up. My mom changed the sheets, like doing the nurse's job, And don't get me wrong, I had a lot of good help at that hospital, but they were so overwhelmed. Just as much good help as I had just as much bad help, unfortunately. And you have to have an advocate. I believe today you have to have an advocate for someone that's that sick in a hospital of some sort to be there daily, almost to save their life, because if you don't, you'll get lost. You'll get lost in the shuffle, man. And people will just be like, well, he's been here for X amount of months, nothing we can do anymore. My mom stayed on him, man. And I really have my mom to thank for that, for not giving up. You know what I mean? Because like there's days I wanted to give up, dude, and she would just be like, "Well, screw it then. We'll just sit here and we'll just watch you die then, if that's what you want." And and she'd break it down. She'd keep it real, man. Like, but if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be walking right now, dude. Like, because she's the one who wanted me to walk more than anyone and get going. So, thanks to her. Obviously, I had some good therapists too, good physical therapists down there for University Hospital Cleveland, Avon. Um, Rehab, but it's just and then another mindset, my mom was huge, but my grandpa was there as well for most of it too. And like I told you, he's a huge influence on me. And um, he's been that might be something you want to think about interviewing him one day, man. He's owned his own business forever in Ohio and Toledo, J&Tel Communications. He put most phone systems in all the big schools and businesses all over Toledo and in Ohio, from Clyde to Bryan. He started his own business, and he's the reason why I started my own business. Seeing him do that as a kid, he worked for Ohio Bell, and then he retired, and then he started his own business. So, but he is a legend, man. He's like the badasses of badasses. He's just a manly man, Polish old school dude, and he used to bodybuild. He used to run marathons. He was a Air Force vet. He was a all-star football player for Maycomber back in the day in Toledo. Ran, did all the type of athletics, and he would wake up at 4 a.m. He literally has done this for like 35, 40 years. Wake up at 4 a.m. without an alarm clock, go to the gym every day
Wow.
before he would go to work. Every day, even in his 60s and 70s, and now he's about to be 80. He doesn't do it as much because it's hard for him to get around. But I mean, my whole life he did that, and for me to think about how much he's persevered, like, man, if my grandpa could do that and do this and do that and do this, I can do this. And he was there to support me, man, cheering me on to walk, and so he was another hero of mine. So he's a huge influence on me. So
It's beautiful. We could literally talk about that for the next 3 hours if we wanted to. But one more question for you, Marcus.
yeah.
Is there anything that you have not told your mother that you would like to tell her?
I guess things that just I've always said, like, go without saying, but I'd probably have said it, or I might have not as much as she would like, but I love her, and she's my best friend. I tell people that all the time, and I'm thankful that God gave me a mom as strong as her, because a lot, like, just as much as you said people could give up, man, she could have gave up on me a long time ago. I wasn't always the best kid. I was getting in fights in school. I had ADHD real bad. I was sometimes hanging out with the wrong crowd, living in the inner city of Toledo, man. Like, you could easily go down that path. You see people, and I could have turned out to be not the best, man, but I chose to be straight edge, like, not drink, not do drugs, not smoke, and focus on my career and focus on being a good person. And especially now with God in my corner, being resaved, like, I just know that she raised me, and she's the one who raised me, man. I didn't have no dad raising me when as a kid, and she had to be both. She was working multiple jobs and was in college when I was a baby. She just did everything she could always for me. She would give up her last plate for me. She'd give up her last dollar for me if she could. Still to this day, she does it, man. She's the one who decorates my tables at our offsite charity events we do, like Zoo to Do or Barefoot on the Beach. She decorated all the tables. She volunteers her time to make sure I look good, man. That's always been her thing, is to make sure her son looks good. So, I just want to say thank you to her, and I love you. And, I couldn't have got this far without you, for sure. I mean, I wouldn't know what I would do if she wasn't around, especially in that hospital, man. And, I know it's a touchy subject for that, but I know that God put her as my mom and put her to be able to be there every day, because if not, I would probably be dead. So that's really it, man.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, by the way.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, those are the questions I have. How can people find you, and what
Yeah.
is one thing you want to leave people with?
Oh, yeah, yeah. So you can find us right now on Instagram and Facebook. Uh, Instagram is the Collective Toledo. Facebook's the Collective Private Chef and Catering. Um, or you can find me personally on Facebook, Marcus Hartford. You'll see me linked with all my business stuff on there for the collective. My personal Instagram also, you can feel free to follow me, and you'll see a lot of my food that I do. Chef X Mark, so Chef X MARC. Um, and then, if you ever want to contact us, my email is the collective chefmarcus at gmail.com. We do any events, 2 people to 200, in-home, private chef catering, event catering, weddings, cooking classes, anything like that. And then right now we're in the midst of building a brand new website. So that should be up hopefully by the start of 2026, which I'm excited about. And then the last thing I want to leave with is, it's November, and it's, a lot of stuff's going down with the government right now, shut down, stamps, food stamps being on hold, and a lot of families out in the community struggling. One little thing I wanted to leave you with is we're doing a collaboration with Chow Boss and the Flava Spot, Private Chef and Catering, um, this next week. It's called Gobble and Give. It's a Thanksgiving giveaway for food and meals for any families or that are homeless in need, or just people that need some food around the holiday time, man. Anyone's welcome. You get one to-go box of turkey, a roll, a dessert, stuffing and green bean casserole, and possibly even some drinks, um, all for free. We're fundraising it right now. We're gonna do it next Sunday on the 23rd of November, 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. at 5825 Jackman Road, Toledo, Ohio. Uh, you're gonna see it. It's where Chow Boss is usually parked his food truck at, in the corner of Alexis and Jackman. If you want to help donate, you can always help donate. You can contact us on our Facebook or our email or any of our Instagrams. Uh, or you can visit our website at givebutter.com/gobblegive. Or you know, you can go to our page, and there's a QR code on our social media page. You can scan that and donate even 50 cents to $1. Anything helps. We're also accepting donations of any food for the dinners: turkeys, canned green beans, bread for stuffing, desserts, drinks, etc. Napkins, anything, and anyone's welcome, man, to come get a plate. And anyone's also welcome to come donate some of their time too, if you want to hand out plates for an hour, and part of it. So that's something I want to leave you with. We're just trying to give back to the community and through collaboration and you know uh, just working together is how we do that. And I think Toledo would be a whole lot better of a place if we did a lot more of that than a lot more of the negativity that has happened, over the years. So I just would love to spread the word on that. Even if you give 50 cents, that helps. So check that out. God will give Thanksgiving next Sunday.
Collaboration is key. I agree completely. Well, Marcus, thank you for coming on the podcast, man. I love not only diving into your private chef, but especially you sharing your mindset around you pushing through adversity. I know that it will inspire someone. So, man,
Yeah.
thank you so
Thank
much.
you
I
so
appreciate
much,
it.
man.
Yeah.
It's been great.